This is The Future Of, where experts share their vision of the future and how their work is helping shape it for the better. I'm David Karsten. In the 2030s, Earth is likely to reach 1.5 degrees of global warming. That means our climate will keep changing, bringing more extreme heat, weather and uncertainty. For many people, that uncertainty feels overwhelming. Some call it climate anxiety, a sense of distress about the continuing fate of the world. So, how do we move from fear to participation? To explore just that, we were joined by Associate Professor Jayne Bryant, Director of Curtin University's Sustainability Policy Institute. You'll find links to Jayne's research in the show notes.
I always enjoy the stories of creatives that have made the switch into academia. I think it's always such a fascinating journey, I guess, to research and to find out about. What's your journey been like?
I feel like I keep on trying to bring the creative back in. A story around that. So where I did my PhD was in Sweden, and as a part of finishing is a defense where you have to present your work to whoever wants to come. You have to be able to answer questions of 3 professors, as well as anyone else who wants to ask you a question about your research, and then defend it. And then the deciding committee goes away for an hour and they come back and decide whether or not you've actually passed your PhD or not. If they say no, that's it. 5 years down the gurgler, you have to start again. So it's pretty intense, right? But
it's like Survivor.
Yeah.
You know, the tribe has spoken, cup over the flame.
Yeah, it's pretty intense.
Yeah, wow. So what happened?
So I passed. But that was a long way of saying I often start that presentation, or I started it a couple of times where I've done these similar events, with a photo of ABBA and a story about I've always loved Sweden. And the story about me being a singer-songwriter and being a rock star was my first love. And I followed that passion. And that passion led me to trying to figure out why all my creative and artistic friends were leaving Perth. So I was studying at WAPA, and I'm a bit confused about why no one's staying here. And then the cover of West Australian newspapers said, "What do you want Perth to look like in 2030? Come and have your say." This is like 20 years ago. And so I got the goosebumps and I got the tears, and I'm like, I want to go and have my say in this event. And that was the day that I learnt the word sustainability and met my current best friend. She was studying this thing called sustainability with Peter Newman. Peter Newman is
the Peter Newman.
The Peter Newman. And I started to learn about sustainability from that event. I became passionate about learning everything I possibly could about sustainability. And instead of wanting to be a rock star, I saw job ads for like the Department of Planning in strategic planning, urban design. And I was like, oh my God, that's the dream job for me. This idea of, being able to be creative on a larger scale in how we design a city. That was what really excited me. Let me go back to starting my PhD presentation with ABBA and music and wanting to do that.
Is that before or after this change in the chronology of it?
Yeah, let's go chronology. So I'm like, okay, I need to learn everything I possibly can about sustainability. I read everything that was on her course reading list. I watched a movie which definitely prompted some climate anxiety in me, and that was Al Gore's movie, An Inconvenient Truth. Yeah. So that was around 2007, I believe. I went to the opening of that, which was at Luna, Leederville. Alana McTiernan was minister at the time in this space. And I remember being kind of deeply troubled and passionate and wanting to make a change in the world and here in my place. And she said, get involved and get active, because if you, the people, don't ask for it, we can't go there. As a minister, I can't push an agenda that my constituency is not asking me to push. So that connection between, social action as a community, as an individual, and then climate change and climate action, it was a bit life-changing for me. And around that time, I was having regular recurring dreams of like floods. They were not nice. They were nightmares. And I was troubled. So music was still around for me. I was, teaching English as a second language, and I think I was possibly still at WAPA, or maybe I wasn't quite sure what I was doing for my career. But what got me was climate change, sustainability, and a desire to make a difference in the world. And As a kid, I'd been called a revolutionary without a cause by a family friend. And I think this was my cause. I found my thing that had been missing in my life that I wanted to learn more about.
For you, Jayne, at that time, what was, I guess, the course path? Given that you'd been to WAPA, did you move into some sort of post-grad kind of world, or did you just have to start again at an undergraduate level?
I had a Bachelor of Science.
Oh,
yeah.
We'll just whip that out.
Yeah.
Great.
So I did a Bachelor of Science in Human Movement at the University of Western Australia.
Before WAPA?
Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Right.
I love learning.
You've been on a journey.
Yeah. So I already had that, so therefore I could move to a postgraduate degree. I went to Murdoch University, where they have a sustainability program, and Curtin, CUSP, was just starting. And I was like, oh, where do I go? What's the best for me? So I did a Google search of sustainability master's programs in Australia. And there was this one link to a place in Sweden. And I clicked the link, and it was this, are you the next sustainability leader? A guy leaping across a blue sky and grass, carrying a briefcase. And I was like, yes. And I clicked through further, and it was this master's program, 1 year intensive, people from all around the world, free, like free higher education for anyone.
Hello to the 1970s.
Hello, Scandinavian.
Yes.
Yeah, 70s in Australia. But this was still early 2000s.
Amazing.
Yeah.
What an opportunity.
I applied.
Yeah.
And I got in. And that was a master's in strategic leadership towards sustainability. The reason I went there was I was also needing hope. I mentioned the nightmares. I mentioned being really quite troubled. When I started to discover, issues around climate change, sustainability, it felt like the wool being pulled from my eyes. And I'm like, we need to do stuff, people. And it's very easy to move into, I don't know, it's beyond me. What do I do? How can I do something? And so I decided to study. So that was the prompt to move across the world.
Jayne, you talk about that experience of watching An Inconvenient Truth in 2007, having nightmares, living in Perth. That's climate anxiety, isn't it?
Absolutely.
So can you tell me, why do you think people feel that way, and increasingly so?
So whereas when I discovered it and I was moving towards studying sustainability, most people didn't know what I was talking about. Johnny Howard was still in charge, denying climate change was even a thing or a problem. What's shifted now is most people in the world not believe, as in it's the tooth fairy and you can believe or not believe, but, understand that we are living through right now climate-related events and impacts, and they're only going to increase. That's existential. The thought that, everything I thought was true and the way I'm living my life and the way we're all living and the values upon which we've based everything might not work moving forwards. That's pretty confronting.
For those of us of a certain generation, that may be experienced as a descent into climate anxiety, but for perhaps a younger generation, is there a baseline that they're living with from the get-go?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think you're naming it. So this master's that I mentioned that I did that changed my life, I then went back and taught on it. I ended up being co-director of that master's program, and I did my PhD on that, in that master's program, looking at what are these things we need to develop in people in order to make change towards sustainability. But during that time, I noticed such a change in the students as they were arriving. So when I arrived 15 years ago, and I mentioned that, John Howard said, climate change is not a thing. For me, starting this master's with people from all around the world, all of whom were saying, there's a problem, everyone. Can we please look at it and can we please address it and try and do something about it? That was kind of healing for me, because I was living in a world where that was a battle. Whereas what I realized was the students that are arriving now, they know things are falling apart. They're witnessing it. They're already in that space. And it was quite interesting for me to observe, like the beginning of this master's program is a full few weeks of here are all the problems, everyone. And wait, there's more. And did you know about that? And that's also connected to this. And this is a problem too. And just witnessing these kids, there's no healing in that for them because they're already there. They already know it. So we need to adjust the way that we speak about it. It's a tough one, David, because we can't sugarcoat it. You know, the problems are real, and I don't think it helps anyone by pretending there are no problems. Yet how do we hold that at the same time as build the agency of people to feel like they can do something about it?
And look, I do want to move into a positive space, but before we do, you know, to me, it seems like, you know, the younger generation has every right to feel aggrieved by a situation that is not of their doing, and aggrieved even further so if we are not enacting good policy and policy that looks towards a solution, right? Is that a hurdle that as a society we need to get across? That, I guess, generational responsibility. I don't know if that's the right
absolutely
the right terminology for it, but do you kind of get what I'm getting at?
I think that generational equity is a key piece of sustainability. And I guess I've used that word without defining what I mean by it. But let's just go with the original definition is meeting the needs of the present without jeopardizing future generations' ability to meet their own needs.
That's why you were on that side of the microphone and I'm over here.
But you were right. You were tapped into it.
I tried.
Like, that's the core of it. And for me, that was back in 1987. It's called the Brundtland Report. What it did was talk about the future and future generations. And I think what's become even more relevant in the present, it's not just future generations, although it is future generations, it's current people living on the planet. We are currently using resources in a completely unfair manner. So this equity piece is often, people think sustainability and they think, oh, we're talking about environment. Totally, we're talking about environment. But sustainability implies a social system that functions within a healthy environment. And a social system needs social equity in order to function effectively. And what we're seeing more and more and more is social equity becoming less and less fair. You know, the rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer. And that matters from a sustainability lens.
In a fairly wealthy society that we enjoy here in Australia, I guess our experience of the urgency of sustainability is perhaps different from other populations around the world. Is climate anxiety experienced equally and in the same way by all populations?
I'm going to go with yes and no. I mean, I think that there are some people in the world who are experiencing climate-related issues right now. Can I also just back up a little in that, for me, climate change is one of the most significant issues that we need to deal with, but it's a symptom of our unsustainability on planet Earth. So we need to sometimes back up and just go, I mean, climate change is one problem, and it's connected to a million other problems that we're going to see that impact all these other spheres. But this idea of sustainability, connecting the environment and the social, let me do this. So the masters that I was connected to, it talked about, let's design with principles of sustainability. What are some things, like absolutely foundational principles, that we're doing wrong when it comes to the environment? What are we doing? Okay, well, we're digging stuff out of the ground and we're releasing it into the atmosphere in systematically increasing quantities. We're also creating chemicals and compositions that have never before existed in nature and releasing those into the atmosphere in systematically increasing quantities. And we're also overfishing and overforesting in a way that these natural systems can't rejuvenate. So if we stop doing those three, that'd be a pretty great start towards something more sustainable. However, if a human being cannot meet their basic needs, we can't have sustainability. Because if a person gets to fish between fishing the last fish and feeding their family, they'll feed their family and the ecosystem dies. A lot of people, when they talk about sustainability, they say there's three pillars. There's the environment, and there's the social, and there's the economic, as if they're not connected.
It's a giant Venn diagram, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it should be a nested model,
Yeah.
right? We should have one planet, big circle, a social system that functions within the constraints of that planet and those ecosystems, and an economic system that serves the functioning of a healthy society within that planet. Wouldn't that be great?
That would be great. I feel a song coming on.
Yeah, it could be.
Well, look, you talk about that element of participation and being active and being a vocal constituent to help drive policy change. What helps shift people from feeling like subjects of the future to actively shaping it?
Yeah, great question. I'm going to make a loop back to the beginning too. So one of my first research papers was based on the work that I did at the City of Canning. So I started at the City of Canning after doing a couple of master's degrees in Sweden, and there was nothing happening there. And I love teaching. That was my first love, teaching, singing, songwriting, all that kind of stuff. And I thought, how do I approach sustainability in this organisation in a way that is going to empower as many people as possible to be leaders for sustainability and climate action? And so I had a great team. We designed a sustainability leadership education program where we trained, it would be 80 people from across the organisation, from all of these different specialist areas, the parks people and the people that worked in the swimming pool and the libraries people. We trained them in sustainability, kind of the principles that I talked about before, in leadership, in what they can do. And then we encouraged and supported them to make changes for sustainability in their lives. So this was the work that I did at the City of Canning. And then when I did my first research paper, I was presenting at a conference in Germany, and it was called Leverage Points for Sustainability Transformations.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice. The idea being, you're right, there are different places in a system. So we're living in a complex system. There are different places you can intervene to try and make change. And I believe the hardest to reach but most effective are actually shifting humans, the mindset or the paradigm out of which we even understand the problem and we address the problem. So I was presenting this work that I did, which was skilling up human beings in an organization to then go and lead change in their own areas. And afterwards, someone asked me a question, because I started with my slide of ABBA and that I'd once upon a time wanted to be a rock star. And he said, do you think that your approach in this organization was influenced by the fact that you're a musician?
Oh, that's interesting. That's an interesting question.
And I said, that's interesting. And I'm like, tell me more. And he's like, well, as a musician or conducting an orchestra, which I don't do, you bring musicians who have all of their different instruments together to this one song or one piece, and you work collectively, but you all play your own part in it. I'm like, that's a beautiful analogy, actually.
That's right. That's great.
That is how I approach sustainability. I'm like, cool, David, you play bass. What about this song? What about this key? And I can play piano, whatnot. How do we move towards something collectively, but using our own strengths to do that? So I guess that's where I find agency, is trying to meet each human being with where they're at and what they have the capability to do, because there is work for all of us. And in terms of addressing that, the shift, okay, climate anxiety, very real thing. And how do you possibly flip towards something that's not? For a start, don't try and not be anxious. Like, it's upsetting. Let's not pretend it's not. For me personally, and I do believe for many other people, it's about having what Joanna Macy would call is active hope. It's actions towards something. So for me, I think I went to Sweden looking for the answer that would kind of save us all. And I didn't find that. What I found was purpose, and purpose for me. And for however long I've got a life on this planet Earth, I want to be moving towards something of value for me and for others. And that helps me keep moving with more hope and more agency.
I was just going to say, Jayne, ultimately, perhaps what you found is that we all are the answers in our own special way.
Absolutely.
Just got to figure out what your role is.
Absolutely.
You had a really good sample size there at the City of Canning of 80 participants over a certain amount of time. Did you find that in order to sustain engagement over the long term, that some personality types or qualities were better suited to these leadership positions than others?
I think, Look, can I then expand that out to a study that we did do? So not just of that, when I was in Sweden doing my PhD with some colleagues, we asked not just me, but a lot of people who do this work in the world around, the question was, what kind of inner competencies? So the word competencies is used for, an ability to do something in the world. And this idea of an interpersonal competence is how do you work with others. Intrapersonal competence is kind of who am I and what capabilities do I need to build in order to do this work. And, we came up with 8 that people felt were useful. They were self-regulation. So this emotional part is full on. How do I do the work, get the disappointment, get knocked back, process that in my own, however I do that, and then keep moving forwards, keep taking that step towards a life of meaning and purpose. Deeply valuing other human beings.
Well, that's a motivator, isn't it? That's a sort of a core motivation anyway.
Yeah.
To doing what you're doing.
Not just those who are like me, all of them, all of us.
Yes.
Ensuring well-being. Show up as your full self. Let's not do caricatures of ourselves or chatbots of ourselves. Let's show up as our full selves. And
that in itself is a challenge for some of us, maybe all of us at times, isn't it? It's actually us, being honest with yourself.
Yep.
Is that's a demand.
Yeah, or your boss if they don't want that part of you.
Yeah. True.
So maybe self-regulating and learning when to do that.
It's all related.
It is. Holding complexity. So we talk about complexity a lot in sustainability. And when we say that, you might have heard of wicked problems. These are problems that are too complex, too challenging for any one discipline or person to solve. And sustainability, climate, these are complex problems. And the ability to hold that, as a person, the paradox also of living in the world that we live in, knowing that it's not going to be perfect and still trying to do something.
So holding complexity is, in a way, is it about accepting complexity? Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. Yeah. Letting things be sometimes, learning to shrug the shoulders if you need to and go for a walk on the beach and just let it be how it is, because things can't always be perfect. Persisting with lightness. See if you can find that humour sometimes.
Yeah, I think you can, Jayne.
I do my best.
Yes. You're finger vibes.
And the last one is fostering a learner's mindset. Always be curious. Yes. We're always just beginning. Stay open. If you've got all the answers, you can't learn anymore.
Oh, and who wants to be around those kind of people?
Who wants to be that?
No? Well, Jayne, you talk about your time in Sweden as being quite formative in shaping your future and the direction that you wanted to take. What did you notice about Swedish culture? Was it a culture that is, I guess, almost suited or better suited to your previous experience to I guess, take on sustainability as a bit of a mission? Yeah,
it's an inspiration, and it's a long-standing crush that I have on Sweden.
What did you see?
For me, it was the valuing of the environment, social equity, gender equity, in ways that we are still moving towards. Parental leave of 18 months shared between 2 partners. All these tiny things that are social sustainability and environmental sustainability. I can give you one example. So I was facilitating a room full of 50 students from all around the world. And there were some Swedes who were talking about some terrible event where there was death. And it was, all the Swedes, there were about 3 or 4 going, oh, that was terrible, that was terrible. And then it came out that what they were talking about was the death of some cows, that there was a bit of a toxic spill somewhere.
Oh, no.
And one of my gorgeous students from Argentina was just like, I'm sorry, what? I'm sorry, what?
Time to crank up the barbecue and have an asado.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
It was just it was an amazing realization of these different cultures around,
Yes.
protection of nature, shall we say, or
Yes. Wow. What a perspective. What a perspective difference, I guess, on the same thing. I guess you've kind of answered it with the cows, but generally, sustainability is a topic of conversation, or as an attitude, or as an outlook. What did you experience in your interactions with the Swedes?
Look, and I'm going to expand this to Scandinavians, full stop.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm now going to do a plug for something at Curtin. So
this would be a good place to do that,
right? I think so. We are taking 30 students from the School of Design and Built Environment,
and one podcast host.
Yeah, I'm sure we can work that out. To Sweden.
Wonderful.
And Copenhagen,
Yep.
Denmark and Sweden in summer for a study tour, Scandinavian study tour, because I don't feel like I can do justice. I think people need to have this lived experience of what it's like to live a life where you use fewer resources. Like, I lived in a tiny little space by myself, but I was happier. There was more connection. I was riding everywhere. I was walking everywhere. If you're on a bike over there, you know where to go. It's not like you're trying to compete with pedestrians and, get punched, or on the road with huge trucks. There's a place for bikes and pedestrians and cars. What's more, way fewer cars, and they're all electric, for example.
Mm-hmm.
But my dream would be, so I'm really excited about this study tour, to take a group of students with us back there to have this lived experience. But I want to take more people. I want it to be a regular thing. I want people who are, making decisions in Perth, Western Australia, government ministers, director generals. I want them to come with us and be part of the conversations where people who are designing the future, cities and the future apartments are like, oh, actually we need to have much less carbon emissions per person, so therefore we have to design this way. I don't hear many conversations like that in our national.
We're a little ways away from that, aren't we? Yeah. Just a little. Yeah. Look, you're totally right. I mean, a lived experience is invaluable. Yeah. In I guess adding to someone's perspective, right?
Yeah. And I do want to name. I know we're talking about carbon, climate, and I'm actually talking about travel. And I'm going to go to one of my first professors in Sweden. It's all about systems thinking. And he would say a carrot does not benefit from traveling across the world, but a human being does.
I love that.
Right. We don't need to be getting our stuff. Let's live local. Let's be smarter in what we choose to do and how we choose to live. But a human being does benefit from traveling across the world and being in the place with other human beings.
Jayne, can climate anxiety, or a level of, actually be a good thing? Do we need it to actually motivate sustainability and change in that,
Yeah. Look, I mean, I'm going to say yes, and that's personal experience. If I didn't discover this thing and get upset and stressed about it, I wouldn't have made any change, So I do think there's an awareness that's needed. And I also think that the content is so disturbing that if you actually get it, you're going to be upset about it. And that's the first step towards making some change. But I think it's really important. There are different choices, right? So, the content comes in. You can choose to deny, head in the sand. You can choose to just get depressed and do nothing and say, oh, well, it doesn't matter anyway. And I would argue, but why wouldn't you try? Isn't it a better life to live? Isn't it a better life to be moving towards something that you value and to try and create something in the world? And I would also argue we can make a difference. We have more power than we think if we choose to use it.
What an enlightening half hour we've had. Thank you so much for bringing us into your world, which is actually our world, Jayne, and thank you for talking with us today.
Absolute pleasure. Thanks for your questions.
In our next episode, we're talking about renewable energy and net zero targets with leaders in the space. Follow us so you don't miss out. You've been listening to The Future Of, a podcast recorded on Wajak Bujar and powered by Curtin University. If you've enjoyed this episode, please share it. And if you want to hear from more experts, stay up to date by following us on your favourite podcast app. Bye for now.